Eleanor and Jordan married 4 years ago. At first, they lived in a small studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. A couple of years ago, they moved into an apartment after Jordan's parents moved to the countryside in search of a quieter life, leaving the family property to their son. Eleanor, who worked shifts and weekends, preferred an active lifestyle, going to the gym or out with friends, rather than staying at home. Their life together was smooth and quiet until one incident changed everything. One morning, the couple went outside to head to work, but found their way blocked by a new car. "At least they left a license plate number," Jordan muttered, worried he was running late. He quickly called the number left on the windshield. 5 minutes later, a young man hurriedly emerged from the entryway, clearly still a student. He moved the car and approached the couple. "I apologize for the inconvenience. I just moved here yesterday. My name is Dominic," he explained. Jordan, eager to leave, introduced himself and Eleanor before getting into the car. Eleanor's gaze lingered on Dominic for a moment longer, and he smiled, sensing that their interaction wasn't over yet. Several months passed since that unexpected encounter. Surprisingly, Eleanor began to stay home more often on weekends. She explained that she was tired from work and preferred to relax and watch movies at home. So when Jordan finished his shifts, his wife was always there waiting for him. One day, Jordan was sent home early due to a power outage at work. He arrived home about 4 hours earlier than expected. As soon as he entered the apartment, his wife rushed into the hallway, her eyes wide with surprise. She was stunned by his early arrival and immediately asked if something was wrong. As Jordan explained the reason for his shortened workday, Eleanor visibly tensed. Just a few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Although Jordan had not yet left the hallway, he quickly opened the door. Standing before him was Dominic, their neighbor, whose once broad smile had faded into one of surprise. A hint of uncertainty clouded his expression. "What can I do for you?" inquired Jordan. I wanted to." Dominic stuttered, his confusion evident. Before he could finish his sentence, Eleanor intervened. "Are you out of flour again? I'll get some right away." She hurried to the kitchen, took a glass of flour, and handed it to Dominic, expressing her gratitude for his visit. Dominic awkwardly pulled his head into his shoulders and retreated to his room. With a sarcastic tone, Jordan inquired, "Is he always shopping here for groceries?" "Come on, no, of course not," his wife quickly replied, trying to smooth out the situation with a smile. She continued, "One day I was baking a charlotte, and the aroma spread throughout the entryway. When I went outside to take out the trash, I ran into Dominic on the stairs, and he asked for the recipe. Apparently, the second time he had some problem. She then quickly changed the subject, asking when her husband would finally fix the nightstand door in the living room. This move prevented her husband from asking any follow-up questions about their neighbor, making the situation even more absurd. Who could imagine a young man staying home to bake, especially when he could easily drive to the bakery? Despite the unlikelihood, Dominic no longer seemed to factor into their lives, and he faded from the couple's horizon entirely. Jordan soon forgot about him, and life returned to normal. One day, Jordan came home from work just as his wife was arriving. It was her day off. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Just taking out the trash and staying home all day," she replied, avoiding eye contact. Jordan walked into the living room and noticed the closet door was still broken. "It's about time I fixed it," he thought. Grabbing his tools, he set to work on the repair, becoming so absorbed that he forgot about calling his coworker regarding a work-related issue. "Honey, what time is it?" he asked absent-mindedly. His wife was standing nearby, watching him work, lost in her own thoughts. She didn't respond to his question until he glanced at her. At that moment, she looked for a clock on the wall, but found none. Sighing quietly, she turned to look at the opposite wall. Surprising her husband with her reaction, she had become incredibly forgetful lately. It's amazing how she could forget where the clock is, especially considering we've lived here for several years now, and according to her, she spends so much time at home, Jordan thought. He began to suspect that something was wrong with his wife. He had a nagging feeling she was hiding something, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Could it be that she was going somewhere on her day off without telling him? The next day, Jordan decided to take the day off as well and returned home in the middle of the afternoon. To his surprise, his wife was not in the apartment, even though she had claimed she had no intention of going out that day. Suddenly, Jordan was reminded of their young neighbor. Could he be involved in this strange behavior? He went to the neighbor's door and rang the doorbell. He waited for a few minutes, hearing movement inside, but no one opened the door. Growing suspicious, Jordan rang the bell a few more times, but still no one answered. Frustrated, he pulled out his cell phone and called his wife. To his shock, he heard her ringtone coming from inside the neighbor's apartment. Annoyed and determined, Jordan yelled out, "There's no use hiding. Open up." Finally, the door swung open and a disheveled and pale Dominic stood before him. Jordan pointed toward one of the rooms and asked, "Is she in there?" Stepping cautiously inside, Jordan noticed the layout of the apartment was almost identical to theirs, except for the clock in the living room, which was placed in the opposite direction. It struck him that Eleanor had spent so much time in the student apartment that she had confused the two places, even at home. Instead of making a scene with his unfaithful wife, Jordan simply found her sitting on the couch, her head bowed. She was so shocked by his sudden appearance that she was wearing her t-shirt backward. Jordan calmly informed her that after this incident, their relationship was over and there would be no reconciliation. He told her to go to their apartment immediately and pack her things. Although she wanted to explain that she had nowhere to go, her husband's stern gaze silenced her. Desperately hoping that her young lover would persuade her to stay with him, she met only a silent shake of his head. With tears in her eyes, Eleanor gathered her belongings, pondering her next steps. She had assumed her affair with the neighbor would go unnoticed, but a small oversight had revealed the truth to her attentive husband. Jordan immediately initiated divorce proceedings, and Eleanor was left to stay with friends until she could rent a modest room in shared living quarters. There was a bitter irony to the situation. She now lived among several male neighbors with whom she wanted nothing to do. She mourned the loss of her relationship with her husband and the peaceful life they had once shared. Desperate to turn back the clock, she realized that the consequences of her actions could no longer be undone.